Charlie, if you haven't sent it already, can you also send it to Philip just in case? I'm about to step away from my desk. Just-
Well, we got another minute and we still need a couple more for a quorum, so we're close. One more anyway for a quorum.
Happy New Year to everybody who's here so far.
Same to you, Donna.
Happy New Year, Donna.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everybody.
It looks like, and I think as Harry said, it was a wise choice for them to call off the in-person meetings with this thing. Pandemic doesn't seem to want to go away.
No, it
Great
doesn't.
choice.
Okay, it looks like, I know we got a quorum. We definitely do. Mr. Bailey's here now. So I know we got a quorum. I guess, looks like the gang's all here. Chloe, I think you're ready. Philip, we're ready to get moving.
Yes, Charlie, we're ready.
Great, thank you. Oops.
All right. Are y'all seeing a planning commission slide?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
All right. I was having some technical issues here.
I'd like to welcome everyone to this January the 19th, 2022 meeting of the City of Charleston Planning Commission member. My name is Charlie Carish. I'm the chairman. I'm joined by Vice Chairman, Mr. Harry Lassane, Mr. Jimmy Bailey, Ms. Laquita Bryant Jenkins, Ms. Donna Jacobs, Ms. Angie Johnson, and Ms. Sunday Lempesis. I'm not sure that Ms. Harrison is with us yet. I didn't
She's
see
going to
her.
be out tonight, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Okay, so Ms. Harrison won't be in. Just so everyone knows, the commission members are volunteers and they're appointed by Charleston City Council. And I know you join me in thanking them for their time and their work on behalf of the city of Charleston. I'm going to briefly go through the procedure of the meeting. I'll read an item into the agenda and then we'll hear from the staff and any recommendation from staff may have. Then we'll hear from the applicant. Then we'll hear from anyone that's in favor of the application. Then we'll hear from anyone that may be opposed to the application. Then we'll give, if there is opposition, we'll have the applicant have a chance to speak the final few words or rebut what was said. Then we'll close the public hearing of this, and then commission members will discuss, make motions, and vote on. I'd like to, let's see, so that's procedure. I was going to ask Mr. Morgan to introduce any of the City of Charleston staff that will be, his staff that will be presenting tonight. And also if he can update us, obviously we talked about it having an in-person meeting tonight and that was canceled. And I think it was a wise idea with this pandemic, but doesn't seem to go away. But if there's any updates from Mr. Morgan, he'll give us too as well. Mr. Morgan.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Christopher Morgan. I'm planning manager here at the City of Charleston. Also from our staff that will be presenting tonight are Lee Batchelder from our zoning division. And then also helping us with the meeting tonight will be Chloe Stuber, Philip Overcash in our planning division, as well as Anna Harp in our zoning division. And then our city clerk, Philip Clapper, will be helping get the minutes put together. And in reference to in-person meetings, so the city backed away from starting in-person meetings as we had planned, 6 weeks ago in January because of the rise in cases. And it seems like South Carolina is definitely peaking right now, unfortunately. But hopefully, as other areas have done, our peak will be over soon. The thing we have is that for us to start our meetings in person back, we have to see the decline in cases and stuff. This is our protocol within the city organization. Once the decline in cases has met the threshold it has to meet, then we have to, get things set up again because most of our meetings require a good bit of advance notice. So because of those reasons, I'm doubtful that your February meeting would be in person, but maybe if things drop fast enough, maybe by March, we could be back in person. That's my best guess at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. I think while I love seeing these people, I'd rather see them in a healthier environment. So I agree with you. And thank you for that update. And thank you for introducing the good staff that you have.
Sure.
The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. It'd be the minutes from December the 15th, 2021. With any additions, corrections to the minutes, or is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm
Jacobs.
up for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second Ms. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Lassane. So there's a motion by Ms. Jacobs and a second by Vice Chairman Harry Lassane. I'll do a roll call vote on the minutes. As soon as I find my sheet, I think I got it here. Yeah, here it is. Mr. Bailey.
I in favor.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bryant Jenkins.
I in favor.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs.
I in favor.
Great, Ms. Johnson.
I in favor.
Thank you, Ms. Lampasas.
I in favor.
Mr. Lassane.
I in favor.
I'm in favor as well. So that's 7 in favor and none opposed. So the minutes passes. The first item on the agenda is rezonings. Number 1 is 3351, 3357, 30 and 33. Well, 3363 Maybank Highway, Johns Island, TMS number 279-0000001, 89, 184, 185, and 307, approximately 6.9 acres. Request rezoning from general office, GO, to business park, BP. Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a little blip in power there for a second. I was concerned because most of us are in different spaces here at 2 George Street, and if the power goes out, there's not going to be a meeting. Oh my goodness. Okay, so here we go. Here, you all, I hope, are seeing the map in front of you that shows all the different zoning designations, and you can see my cursor moving around that. This is Maybank Highway on Johns Island. The colors of the pinkish purplish color here show the Maybank Corridor Overlay District that is in Charleston County that's been adopted, and we are working on our own version of that. The colors that are in the city, there's not a lot in the city on this portion of Maybank Highway, are the plain colored parcels such as the CT here at Paulette Drive and Maybank, the GO of the old Berkeley Electric Co-op facility here. I believe this is the PSD's, well, wait, the PSD has a fire station. Maybe it's over here to the east. There are PUDs in the city back in this area here where the tattooed moose is. And then the rest of it is the county's overlay, which essentially allows commercial uses, lower intensity commercial uses, as well as residential uses in this part of Maybank. And then to the rear are residential, single family residential areas. And we'll show some aerials too. Here is screen captures from our comprehensive plan of where this property fits within our new city plan. And it is in the neighborhood edge designated areas, as is a good bit of Maybank Highway outside of the 3 centers along Maybank Highway. And you can see it in the broader image there as well. Here's an aerial image of the shot. And this is again after Berkeley Electric Co-op has moved out of the facility. They've moved to a new modern facility on Main Road, a couple miles to the north of this. The property has then gone up for sale, and there is an entity that is either under contract or has recently purchased it that is interested in reusing the site here. And again, it backs up to the residential areas. It has commercial areas to the east and west. And across the street, the PSD has their facility as well as a small park area. And then the Tattooed Moose is over here in that location there where there's a new PUD in the city of Charleston. Here is a oblique image of the property. You can see a lot of quasi-industrial or warehouse type buildings at the rear that Berkeley Electric used, as well as the office space up to the front and parking areas and tree buffer. And here's an image of it from Maybank Highway. It's on the left. And another image looking down to the east on Maybank Highway. And the subject property is to the right. And the applicants have provided a couple of images here with what they plan to have on the site. And I won't go into this in a lot of detail, but they'd like to have warehouse areas, boat, RV storage, things like that. And then they'd like to use the old office building for a preschool. And the zoning category that they are requesting, the business park, is something that would allow for that. And we'll go back to the cover image that shows the request from general office as it was zoned for Berkeley Electric to business park. And given the neighborhood edge designation of the comprehensive plan, we are comfortable with that request. This is not a location that we could have endorsed something like general business or industrial for, but we are comfortable with the business park, which is kind of a blend between some of those and seems like it's going to be a good fit for the types of buildings that are on the site.
Mr. Morgan, Chloe, is Mr. Taylor or Mr. Richter with us?
Yes, I will promote them to panelists now.
Gentlemen, Mr. Taylor or Mr. Richter, you go ahead whenever you're ready. Mr. Taylor, Mr. Richter.
Yeah, hey
Just
guys,
not
can you
getting-
hear me?
Yes,
Yes, sir. You go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thank you for that brief introduction for our request here. Kyle Taylor, Hoyt and Brini, civil engineers representing Berkeley Electric Co-op and Richter Development, who is the eminent owner for the property, under contract, intending to purchase very shortly, and been coordinating with staff for a good bit now, and have landed on BP as an appropriate zoning. The applicant and the owner both concur with that recommendation, and we think it's going to be a great fit for the property moving into the next ownership of this property that's been owned by BEC for going on, I believe, 70 years. So they moved around the corner on Johns Island, a couple miles away in 2020, I believe. And so we're here to answer any questions. We concur with the staff's recommendation, and looking forward to answering any questions you may have.
Mr. Taylor, the only question I had pertaining to this, are you the same, Mr. Taylor? Are you at a meeting with me at the mayor's office regarding the cemeteries? I'm just curious.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, good. I know there was two Kyles there and I didn't know which one I had. But
Good to be with you again.
thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All right, I see that, Chloe, correct me if I'm, no one signed up to speak in favor or opposed, and there's no written comments, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, that being the case, we'll close the public aspect of this and ask commission members for discussion, questions, or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I will move for approval. And I just would add, I think all of us on the commission have concerns about Johns Island. And one of the things that will help address some of the traffic issues there is if we can create some job centers on the island. And I think this zoning category, although this immediate plan perhaps doesn't create a lot of jobs beyond what the Berkeley Electric Cooperative had, I think over the long run, this is a positive zoning category for this part of Johns Island. So I will support it.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. Ms. Lampasas, did you want to speak on this or?
Yes, Charlie, I was going to just second Mr. Lasane's motion.
Great, thank you, ma'am. So there's a motion by Ms. Lasane, second by Ms. Lampasas. Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Bailey?
I in favor.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bryant Jenkins?
I in favor.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Jacobs?
I in favor.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
I in favor.
Thank you, Ms. Lampasas.
I in favor.
Great, Mr. Lasane.
I in favor.
And I'm in favor as well. So that's 7 in favor and none opposed. Thank you, Mr. Taylor and your team. The next item.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is ordinance amendment. Number 1, to amend Article 3, Site Regulations, Part 4, Off-Street Parking Requirements of Chapter 54 of the Code of the City of Charleston zoning ordinance by adding 2 new sections to provide for shared parking. Will it be Lee or Ms. Harp, Mr. Morgan?
Mr. Batchelder is going to give the background on this.
Thank you. It's always Lee. It's always good to hear from you.
Thank you, Planning Commission members. Good to be with you. So we've got 2 ordinances on the agenda tonight. First one deals with shared parking, a concept that's been around for a little while. And it's based on the idea that if you have a mixture of uses within a large enough commercial development or commercial and residential development, that there's going to be parking demands at various times of the day for those different uses. And so instead of just simply adding up the requirements for your residential component plus your commercial component plus your office component, and creating a overall number to fit all of those uses. This is the idea is that you can have a reduced number of parking spaces and still have adequate parking to account for the different needs during the different times of day by those different uses. So that's the idea. And the city would like to do this and begin doing it and target this to West Ashley, number 1. where we have lots of large parking areas, because we think this could be, I guess, an incentive to help redevelop some of those properties. So in looking at this, in response to the request to come up with an ordinance, I just did a little searching online because it's very easy to do that now with zoning ordinances from cities all over the country being available online. And I found two examples of shared parking ordinances that I thought were very good. One was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and one was in Raleigh, North Carolina. I know Raleigh has a zoning ordinance that I look to sometimes when I'm wondering about this or that, as it relates to zoning regulations. Fort Lauderdale, I don't spend much time looking at, but I thought their shared parking section made a lot of sense to me. So I took both of those examples and I sort of combined them and then modified the language to fit within our zoning ordinance. So just starting off, the shared parking option is only an option if the technical review committee of the city approves that option. So it's based on a staff review, and TRC is made up of engineers, people from the zoning and planning division, and our traffic and transportation department. And so this ordinance basically says that committee has to be okay with what's being proposed. And it goes into how you prepare that analysis. And the model is the ULI, Urban Land Institute's shared parking model, and they update that occasionally. So this references the latest edition of that model. Again, that's something that the consultants who work on these projects are familiar with and our staff is familiar with. So that becomes the model for how many spaces should go with this use versus that use, that sort of thing. And that analysis has to be prepared by a registered engineer in the state of South Carolina and sealed. So it's an engineering document, just like other documents that are prepared by them and reviewed by that committee. And then it goes on and it explains that the final decision is to be part of a parking reduction order, and that order should be recorded in the county's RMC or Register of Deeds office. So it becomes a public record that this property has these shared parking requirements based on this mix of uses. And that's important because over time, properties change ownership and plans for those properties change. And the important thing is to have a mechanism that triggers a review of this shared parking arrangement if a new owner comes along and wants to change the uses. So that's what that order does. And by making it a public document that's recorded, it's available to any prospective buyer to be aware of. And then there's a termination explanation of how an agreement gets terminated. And then finally, there's a language in this proposed ordinance about off-site parking agreements. Sometimes the parking, some of the parking or all of the parking might be provided in an off-site location, meaning an adjacent parcel or something across the street or whatever. If that's the case, again, there's got to be something that is drawn up and recorded in the Register of Deeds office to guarantee that that parking will remain available. And if there's any change to the that circumstance, then of course that would be a termination of the shared parking arrangement. So anyway, that's the gist of the ordinance. Again, a lot of the language comes from a melding of those two zoning ordinances from Raleigh and Fort Lauderdale, which I, again, thought were very good. And I don't know that I'm qualified to reinvent the wheel on that. So I felt like if they made sense to me, they made sense for the city. And I hope that that you'll agree and go ahead and recommend approval. I think this has been before City Council. Christopher, can you?
Correct. Yeah, so first read.
So they have given it first reading approval. And I think maybe this is being thought of for the former Piggly Wiggly site that the city owns.
Correct.
Sam Renberg. So anyway, that's the brief explanation of it. Hopefully not too long of an explanation, but I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Batchelder. And I'll just say that normally Raleigh learns from Lee Batchelder. We don't learn from Raleigh, but anyway. Thank you. And I see that no one has signed up to speak and there's no written comments. So that'll close the public aspect of this. And then commission members may have questions for Mr. Batchelder or motions.
Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Ms. Jacobs, you go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was excited to hear about the focusing at West Ashley revitalization because I think, I live in Burns Downs, as most people know, and we do have, a continual, what I call problem of success with parking. And so I know that there's nothing right now that's going to be changing over, but maybe this will initiate some good conversations with some uses for some of the larger lots that are available for us. But with that said, I did have a couple of questions with regard to this. And one is, you talk about a change of ownership with regard to the sale of the property, but wonder if there's a change of use just by leasing. How is that addressed? Because I didn't get a good feel about how this was going to really be reviewed and monitored. And that's, to me, a very staff-heavy situation to make sure that a lease change isn't going all the time. And it says two things. One, the language in section, it would be 1B where it says change of use, it says shall have the option. And that didn't feel very strong to me. I thought it should be done. And the other is that a violation is of the zoning ordinance, but it didn't sort of specify what these violations meant, like are there fines or, something's going on. So I wanted to see how that is, mainly because we deal with these parking issues in Avondale, and we need to be creative about this. So I wanted to make sure that we get an ordinance that really also sees the problems and make sure that we don't create a secondary problem.
Batchelder, you want to?
Well, we can pursue violations through court and obtain remedies that way. So I think that's what that's referring to, that process. If there are changes in use that are contrary to the shared parking agreement and parking order, then I think that becomes a failure of any condition, which is subsection.
How's that going to be monitored? Is that something that through a business license application, or that seems real staff heavy? The use could change, but who's going to notice that? And how's it going to be noticed with the city?
Well, I suppose that order would also be available on the property, on the GIS record for that property, which we keep records that way now. And so in our permitting system, which includes business licenses, is all based on properties. So it's all linked to the GIS system of the city. So when we were looking at a certain property to find the permitting documents, these other documents are available, and somehow we would figure that out, I suppose. We could add another overlay, another layer in our GIS maps to identify these properties. So I think that would be possible to do, and I don't really see this being, I don't think it'd be widely used. I think it's going to be targeted towards the larger properties where you can have significant reduction of parking based on these different uses. And otherwise, it wouldn't be worth trying to go through the headache to, eliminate a few spaces.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we weren't getting in a situation where it's going to become staff burden to monitor that we aren't in a problem situation. Otherwise, I'm very excited about this, and I love the creativity of it, and I will move for approval. My last question to you, though, is can we seek retrofitting on some situations? Can we approach property owners and ask them to consider shared parking without a change of use? That's a rhetorical question for another day, but I appreciate that consideration. So I will move for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Good questions. And thank you, Lee, for your comments and elaborating on that. And Ms. Jacobs has moved for approval. Other comments, questions, or a second?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. It's kind of opposite of what Ms. Jacobs just said. My question is, are the current properties grandfathered in? Or are you expecting to change existing properties?
Well, current properties being current properties that provide a lot of parking.
Or that have parking the way that they are? I mean, will this be allowing the existing properties and owners have to modify their parking, or will they be grandfathered in?
Well, they'd be grandfathered. So this would only apply where somebody wants to go through this process and do the steps that are necessary in order to obtain a shared parking arrangement on the property. But otherwise, no, this would not be, it's not meant to be retroactive and require people that already have businesses or developed land to go through this process.
Thank you, Mr. Batchelder.
Thank you, Ms. Lempesis. Other questions, comments, or a second to Ms. Jacobs' motion?
Mr. Bailey and Mr. Lassane have hands up.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Bailey, you go ahead.
Just a quick question, Lee. Doesn't the Daniel Island Town Center zoning have some shared parking component?
Yes, it does. It does. Yes.
My perspective of that's been very successful there. I mean, is that correct?
I think so. I've never heard of any problems with it. I think they've got sufficient parking based on that shared parking arrangement.
Well, I'll defer to Mr. Lassane for his question, but I second the motion.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Lassane, you go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Lee. I think this is a creative way of encouraging, some property owners to take a look at particularly these suburban strip centers that have, asphalt seas around them, that perhaps there's a higher and better use than asphalt parking. I had a question about particularly the off-site parking agreement, and just the mechanics of how that works. I understand that there is a document that will be recorded with the subject property. The off-site, I'm trying to imagine a scenario in my head where the off-site parking becomes a problem. So could you just kind of walk us through how that works? Because it doesn't seem like the off-site parking that's not recorded with that property. It's recorded with another piece of property. So I'm wondering if they're, say 25 years down the road, if the owner of the off-site parking and the on-site parking, I guess, are different, and maybe the information doesn't travel from property owner to property owner. How do we assure that there is sufficient off-site parking? That's just.
Well, I think this agreement gets recorded for the property where the off-site parking is occurring.
Okay.
So that if
So it's recorded on both.
Right, so that if there's a change in
Okay.
ownership of that offsite parking property, then there's notice of this requirement.
Okay, so it is recorded with both the on-site and the off-site parcels. That answers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lassane. Any other questions? If not, we have a motion by Ms. Jacobs, a second by Mr. Bailey. I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Bailey?
I in favor.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bryant Jenkins?
I in favor.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Jacobs?
I in favor.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
I in favor.
Thank you. Ms. Lampasas?
I in favor.
Great. Mr. Lassane?
I in favor.
I'm in favor as well, so that's 7 in favor and none opposed. The next item on the agenda is ordinance amendment number 2, which is to amend Article 2, Land Use Regulations, Part 4, Accessory Uses of Chapter 54 of the Code of City of Charleston zoning ordinance to clarify certain allowed outdoor activities under home occupations. Is this Mr. Batchelder or?
Yes.
Great,
Yes.
Mr. Batchelder, we look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, so home occupations are non-residential uses that the zoning ordinance allows on residentially zoned properties. And these are typically uses, very low impact uses that neighbors wouldn't even realize were there. And one of the requirements that we've always had on the books for these home occupations is that they be uses that take place within the dwelling or an accessory building. So they have to be in a building. And of course, that makes it more difficult to even notice that there's some activity, non-residential activity going on at a residential property. But we had a situation come up recently where a homeowner who has a pool in their backyard and has been using that for swimming lessons for small children, infants, I guess, and slightly older children, we found out about it and through a complaint, and one thing led to another, and so we met with the homeowner who conducts that business and learned about what was going on, and it's you don't think about it, but that's an extremely important thing for small children to learn, is how to swim. And so anyway, in a backyard pool, that's easy to do, I suppose. I don't know. I've never given those lessons, but you don't need a big pool probably to figure that out. So it seems like a very worthy use, something that we would like to encourage people to do in appropriate settings. And but we realized we had to amend the zoning ordinance to accommodate this use. And so the amendment that is in your agenda packet is seeking to either delete or add language to the existing home occupation section of the zoning ordinance to specifically make it allowable to have this type of outdoor home occupation activity. And that's the whole idea behind these few amendments. The other thing that I think brought this to the attention of us was the parking issue and the traffic issue and that sort of thing. So we've added language to the ordinance about that aspect of it, just to clarify that we want these operators of these home occupations to make sure that they're coordinating the pickup and drop off times so that there's not a lot more traffic than you normally have during the actual instruction period. And that's all we're attempting to do here. I think the homeowner who gives these swim lessons and operates this business is on the call. I don't know if she signed up to speak, and I know that you have a large number of comments that were submitted in support of this as well. So anyway, we think this is a worthy amendment to our home occupation standards, and we recommend approval of this.
Thank you, Mr. Batchelder. And Chloe, is Anna, I'm probably going to mispronounce her name, Faenza. She on board to speak with us now?
Yeah, she's just joined as a panelist.
Great. Anna, I don't want to mispronounce your last name. If you tell me what it is, we're ready for you whenever you're ready for us.
Okay, thank you. It's Faenza.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, and I live at 74 Chadwick Drive. I'm a certified infant aquatics survival swim instructor. Holy Mackerel Infant Aquatics is my licensed home occupation. I teach children ages 6 months to 6 years of age the aquatic skills needed to survive in case of a water accident. There's been confusion lately as to whether or not backyard swimming pool qualifies as a home occupation in the city of Charleston because the pool is not inside the dwelling. The amended ordinance presented to you this evening will make it absolutely clear that swimming instruction qualifies as a home occupation and that this type of instruction does not have to occur in an enclosed building. If this ordinance does not pass, parents will have limited, if any, access to a type of instruction that could potentially save their child's life. I've made every effort to comply with the ordinance and will make sure that I do so moving forward. Thank you all for your time and consideration.
Well, Ms. Faenza, thank you for your work, your life-saving work, and for the and for helping all these folks with their children in this endeavor. Do you know Melissa Fox?
I don't know her personally, but I know of her, yes.
Okay, I know she lives in South Windermere and has been teaching swimming mostly to infants and kids for probably 30 or 40 years. Anyway, I was just curious.
Yes, sir. Mhm.
But we do have, as Lee said, we have 58 written comments, all of them in favor. There's nobody in opposition. Chloe, how do we, obviously we're not going to read every one of them. They all are in favor and they all seem to follow the same theme that they support this. Chloe, how do you want to handle this?
Our new policy as of last year is written comments are provided now 24 hours in advance to all commissioners. So they've been given the opportunity to read through those. And then we just summarize them into the record. So I think you've done that, Charlie, you've already summarized. Okay. They're in support for all the reasons that have already been mentioned. It's an important service. It's convenient to have it in a neighborhood and everyone's in support.
Boy, yes, ma'am. Thank you. And there's some beautiful comments in there and all very strongly supportive. That'll close the public aspect of this since there's no one signed up in opposition. Commission members, questions, comments, or motion?
Mr. Karras, Charlie, I'd like to move for approval. It's my neighborhood and I have heard absolutely wonderful things about Anna's instruction and I fully support it and I'd like to move for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Lampus. Other questions, comments, or second? Ms. Jacobs?
Mr. Chairman, I will second that motion. One tiny thing in the very first sentence, the strike through probably should include in a, because it only strikes through dwelling unit and it reads funny. A home occupation may be established on a property instead of in. I think we may want to take that out since that is the wording here. And we may want to call this amendment the Holy Mackerel Aquatic Amendment tonight because of the 58 comments in support of her work. And I'll second.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Batchelder, I told you to run with these things by Ms. Jacobs before you print them out. No,
good.
Thank you, Donna. Donna can spot stuff.
Thank you for catching that.
No. So there's a motion by Ms. Lampus, a second by Ms. Jacobs. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I just
Yes,
know
sir.
that it's been a few years ago, but my piano teacher in the 3rd grade, whose home that I took those lessons in, will appreciate this.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Saint. And your kid's a little bit older than that now, right?
Well, I'm talking about me, Charlie. It's been a few
okay.
years.
No, but how old are your children now? Just out of curiosity.
They're college age.
Okay, good. No, thank you. Good comment, and thank you. So there's a motion by Ms. Lampus, second by Ms. Jacobs. So we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Bailey? Mr. Bailey? Did I lose you? We'll come back to you. Ms. Bryant Jenkins?
I in favor.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobs?
I in favor.
Great. Ms. Johnson?
I in favor.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Lampasas?
I in favor, but Charlie, Missy Fox actually taught my kids who are now out of the home. So thank goodness for allowed occupations back then.
No, thank you. I'm sure she taught a lot of kids in the neighborhood and all over Charleston, but anyway, thank you, Ms. Lampasas. Mr. Lassane?
I in favor.
And I'm in favor. Mr. Bailey, you back with us?
Charlie, I don't see him on the call anymore.
Okay.
He
Something
may
might-
have had some internet issue or something.
Okay,
but,
no
yeah.
problem. Well, we have 6 in favor and none against. So that ordinance amendments does pass. The next item on the agenda is zoning. Number 1 is 2221 South Dollarton Circle, Cyclop, West Ashley, TMS number 310700059, 0.5 acres, request zoning of single-family residential, SR1. It was zoned single-family eventually R4 in Charleston County. Mr. Morgan.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to have a number of these now. We've got some annexations picking up.
We can
and,
take them all. We need to take them separately though.
Well, because of the different zonings on
Okay.
them, probably need to take them separately, but I'll go through them real quickly because they're pretty basic.
No problem. Thank you.
So this is in West Ashley, and it is in a neighborhood that is basically SR1 when it comes into the city, and R4 is the closest compatible district. SR1 is the closest compatible district to R4, so that's why we're recommending SR1 in this location. And I believe we have our plan map too. It is in the low impact and conserved area, but the lot lines are already set. So, and the house is already there. So we typically take the zoning that is most compatible with the county zoning in that instance.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. And no one signed up to speak, so there's that'll close the public aspect. Commission members,
Mr.
motion.
Chairman.
Go ahead.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Sane. Mr. Sane moves for approval. Is there a second?
I second.
Who spoke first? Ms. Johnson or Ms. Bryant Jenkins?
Miss Johnson.
Okay,
Either one.
okay. So Mr. Lassane moves for approval. Ms. Johnson seconds. We'll do a roll call vote. I'll call Mr. Bailey, see if he's back. Mr. Bailey? Okay, Ms. Bryant
I'm
Jenkins?
back, but I did not,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I abstain. I didn't hear any of the presentation.
Okay.
Sorry.
We'll get back to you. We missed you while you were gone, so we'll get back to you. Ms. Bryant Jenkins?
I in favor.
Great. Ms. Jacobs?
I in favor.
Ms. Johnson?
I in favor.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Lampasas?
I in favor.
Great. Mr. Lassane?
I in favor.
And I'm in favor as well. So that's 6 in favor, 1 abstention, and none opposed. Next item on the agenda, zonings, is also in Dollarton Circle, 2216 South Dollarton Circle, Cyclop, West Ashley, TMS number 310700044, 0.26 acres, requested zoning of SR1, single family residential. Like the other one, it was zoned single family residential R4 in Charleston County. Mr. Morgan.
Again, similar situation to the previous one. The neighborhood, when it converts into the city, has been going to SR1, and that's our most compatible district with the R4 of Charleston County. And here again, this is in the low impact and conserved, but the lot is already developed. So we typically do the zoning that is most compatible with the already developed lot. And here's an image of the property in question. Did we lose you, Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, there's no one signed up to speak. So is there a motion to approve or questions?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Lassane. Mr. Lassane always bails me out when it's quiet, so I appreciate it. Is there a second or questions?
I second.
Great, Ms. Bryant Jenkins is a second, so we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Bailey? Oh, we might have lost him. I'm gonna take that as you're okay with it. Thank you, Ms. Bryant Jenkins.
I in favor.
Great, Ms. Jacobs.
I in favor.
Great, Ms. Johnson.
I in favor.
Thank you, Ms. Lampasas.
Aye in favor.
Mr. Lasane,
Aye in favor.
and I'm in favor. That's 7 in favor and none opposed. Next item on the zonings is number 3, 1506 North Edgewater Park, West Ashley, TMS number 34909000026, approximately 1.59 acres. Request rezoning of rural residential, R1, to a zone single-family residential, R4 in Charleston County. That's interesting. It's rural residential. Mr. Morgan.
Yes, and so I'll explain a little bit why we're recommending for the rural residential. In the past, this is an area that, because it's R4, we would have recommended automatically just SR1. But this area actually is, as you can see from this image, in our natural wetland area number 1, and then also in our low impact and conserved area. Now it is fully developed, but it does have a much larger lot. And so we felt it was important to indicate that, this is an area that, should be lower density in the future. So there wouldn't be any interest in or ability to subdivide further here. And so the RR1 does require a 12,500 square foot minimum lot. I believe they've got well over that in lot area, although a lot of their lot area is wetlands and marsh area. So this was an effort to bring it a little bit more into compliance with our new comprehensive plan, which calls for areas like this to have lower densities.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I'm
Property
sorry.
too. Here's an
Everything-
image of the property.
Oh, great. Thank you. Beautiful lot.
Mhm.
Mr. Morgan, I didn't want to cut you off. You finished?
That was it.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
There's no one signed up to speak on this. So is there questions, comments, or motion by commission members?
I'll move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Second,
Second.
Ms. Johnson, second. So motion by Ms. Jacobs, second by Ms. Johnson. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Bailey. All right, we may have to come back. We'll come back to him. Ms. Bryant Jenkins.
Aye in favor.
Great, Ms. Jacobs.
Aye in favor.
Great, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson,
Aye in favor.
thank you. Ms. Lepsis.
Aye in favor.
Great, Ms. Hossein.
Aye in favor.
And I'm in favor. Mr. Bailey, you back with us? Okay, so 6 in favor, none opposed. That's a yes, Mr. Bailey? I'm gonna take it as a yes. I heard a ping, so I'm assuming that's a yes. All right, so there's 7 in favor and none opposed. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. The next item on the agenda under zonings is number 4, 30, 32, and 34 Wedge Park Road, 43 and 49 Lolandra Avenue, Carolina Terrace, West Ashley, TMS number 4181 300-254, 256, 260, and 252, approximately 0.99 acres. Request rezoning of single-family residential SR2 for properties fronting Wedge Park Road and single-family residential SR1 for properties fronting Lolandra. They were zoned single-family residential R4 in Charleston County. Interesting piece of property. Mr. Morgan?
Okay, and these are all owned by one owner who brought them into the city altogether. And we're grateful that they brought them to the city. This neighborhood typically is a mix of SR1 and SR2 based on the lot size that they've been developed to. And that's the kind of approach we've taken with these zonings. So you've got some smaller lots up on Wedge Park that are tougher to meet the SR1 standards. So those we've recommended for SR2. And then you've got 2 lots that are on Lolandra that are a little bit bigger, that are more easily meeting the SR1 standards. So those are recommended for SR1. We have some images of this area. Again, it's in mostly in our suburban designation, although a portion of it is, one of the lots is in what we call the low impact conserve based on elevations. That is getting the SR1 recommendation here, as is the other lot on Lolandra. And then we have some images of the lots here from an aerial, and I believe we've got another image here, so you get a sense of those. And we are recommending approval of that mixture of SR2 and SR1.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. And no one assigned to speak on this item either, so that'll close the public aspect. And commission members, questions, comments, or motion?
I have a question for Mr.
Yes, ma'am,
Batchelder.
Ms. Lampasas, go ahead.
it looks like there are houses that are one house that a property line's going through. Is that correct?
Not going through. What you may have seen on the aerial is there might be a line that's slightly off on this.
No, I'm looking on the tax map, not really the aerial.
This image here.
Uh-huh. It doesn't look like, it looks like there's,
So
I mean,
there's
there's
some dependencies at the rear, and I think this lot in the middle may not have a main house on it. So it may be an infill property here, but these
Okay.
lots already existed in Charleston County. And these structures, of course, already exist. And these look
Okay,
like dependency type
they just
structures.
didn't have setbacks to it, and I didn't know whether they were houses or not, just a technicality. Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Lampus, is that a motion? Great.
Yes, I'll move for approval, Mr.
Thank you,
Cash.
Ms. Lampus. Second or questions?
I'll second.
Okay, let me see who that second is. Say it once more. Ms. Bryant
Ms.
Jenkins?
Jacobs.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bryant Jenkins. I'm sorry, I get crossed up. So.
No, it's okay. I should raise my hand like Ms. Jacob does and
There
be.
you do. No, Ms. Jacobs just looks at me and I know she wants me. So anyway, she's got the look. So Ms. Lampus has moved for approval. Ms. Bryant Jenkins is a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Oh, big question. Mr. Bailey? We'll come back. Ms. Bryant Jenkins? Oh, Mr. Bailey is a yes. Ms. Bryant Jenkins?
I in favor.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobs?
I in favor.
Great. Ms. Johnson?
I in favor.
Thank you. Ms. Lampus?
I in favor.
Ms. Lassane?
Whoops, sorry, I in favor.
Great, thank you. Don't let me lose you, Mr. Lassane. I need you. And I'm in favor, so that's 7 in favor, none opposed. And the last zoning is number 5, which is 2319 Lazy River, Parkdale, West Ashley, TMS number 3101 4000 400014, approximately 0.62 acres. That's zoning of rural residential RR1. It was on R4 in Charleston County. Mr. Morgan.
And again, here we've got a lot that is in a waterfront location. In the past, we would have just said SR1 as we had done in the past, and it's most compatible with the R4, but it is a larger lot and it is in the low impact and conserved area. So that's why we're recommending for the RR1, and they meet all those standards for that amount of lot size because they're over a ½ acre in size. So that's well over the 12,500 square foot lot minimum. And here's an image of the lot itself. So staff is recommending for RR1 on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. No one has signed up to speak on this as well. So is there a questions or a motion by commission members?
I'll move for approval, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lassane. Is there a second?
I'll second.
This is Jimmy. I'll second.
Jimmy, I'm gonna take that as a second. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We're glad you're back. So there's a motion by Mr. Lassane, second by Mr. Bailey. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Bailey?
I in favor.
Thank you. Ms. Bryant Jenkins?
I in favor.
Great. Ms. Jacobs?
I in favor.
Great. Ms. Johnson?
I in favor.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Lampus?
I in favor.
Ms. Lassane?
I in favor.
And I'm in favor. That's 7 in favor, none opposed. So that item passes. Last item, excuse me, on the agenda is election of officers, election of chairman and vice chairman for the commission. And I will open it up for commission members. Mr. Morgan, is there anything you want to say on this, or is it basically just the commission members to go ahead and discuss and vote on?
It's for you all to determine.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna open this.
I would like to propose that we keep the chair and co-chair as they are today, since basically we've had 1 year of virtual meetings. And I think everybody deserves to have their day in present court and in person. So I move for the existing chair, Mr. Karish and Mr. Lassane as co-chair.
And
Do I have-
I second that
Second
motion.
that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, absolutely, because they have done a great job of managing a virtual environment. And I wholeheartedly support that motion.
Ms. Johnson, do you want to say anything? I don't want to cut anybody off.
I was just seconding that.
Oh, great. Thank you. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I could just let
Yes,
my
sir.
fellow commissioners know about our conversation earlier. Charlie Carish is such a fine person, and we're so lucky to have him as chair. He does such a great job keeping these meetings moving and allowing the public, an even-handed way of giving us input. And he actually offered to step aside if I wanted to be the chair, which I think was a very gracious move on his part. I wanted each of you to know that. And I told him absolutely not, that he was doing such a great job. I would wholeheartedly support him continuing to be our chair. So,
well, I appreciate the confidence, Mr. Hussein, and all of y'all. It's, I think to me, I'm a good chair because of the commission members we have. And we have good staff, a great staff, and good commission members, each and every one of y'all. I call y'all and talk to y'all all the time, and I'm proud to serve with every one of y'all to make this city even better. And me and Mr. Hussein did have a conversation. We said, affordable housing, affordable housing, affordable housing. We're ready to tackle that thing and send some stuff to city council. Hopefully, I think we've been through about 30 days. We said we'd wait 60 days, didn't we, Mr. Morgan?
That's correct.
So I think we got another 30 days, hopefully hear from staff on that. But thank you for the confidence. So there's a motion by Ms. Lemphasis, and I think a second by Ms. Jacobs. So we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Bailey?
I in favor.
Thank you. Ms. Bryant Jenkins?
I in favor.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobs?
Wholeheartedly, I in favor.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Johnson?
I in favor.
Thank you. Ms. Lampasas?
I'd like to mimic Mr. Bailey. I in favor.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Hussein?
I in favor.
And I'm in favor as well. And I'd just like to echo that it's a privilege to work with each and every one of y'all. And I look forward to working with y'all the next year. It really is an honor to work with each of y'all and the city staff. So I know that concludes everything on the agenda, unless anybody has anything they want to say to us. Any words of wisdom? No?
Happy New Year to everyone.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll actually get to see each other this year in real time.
Great.
Not
Mr.
virtual
Hussein, you had anything? You just waving? Okay, good. Thank you. Well, this meeting is stand adjourned. So thank all of y'all and y'all have a good evening.
Have a good evening.